Hey, it's Harry. Welcome in to the 1983 Still Ugly After All These Years celebration of the Chicago White Sox. Well, we thought we were going to be celebrating the Chicago White Sox. We celebrated them all year. They were just outstanding, winning the division by 20 games. And the year before, the Sox had lost the AL West by 6 games. Here they were dominating from start to finish, led by the Cy Young winner, Lamar Hoyt, the Rookie of the Year, Ron Kittle, and you'll see his handsome mug in just a bit. And you're also going to have a chance to visit with Tommy Paciorek. In 1983, no one expected the White Sox to dominate the way they did. And then Julio Cruz scores coming in from third base on a sac fly, and the clubhouse was just going crazy. This is Still Ugly on the Games People Play Media Network.
Here comes a throw. Here comes Cruz. Sox grab the Golden Ring. The 1983 Western champions in the American League. And you think there aren't some happy people on the field.
Joining me now is White Sox legendary broadcaster Ken the Hawk Harrelson. Hawk Harrelson, a man who not only lit up Major League pitchers while he was playing, but he lit up magazine covers, restaurants, golf courses, one of the greatest personalities in the history of baseball. He was in baseball for, I think he was in the womb about month 3 or 4. Somebody offered him a contract, Kansas City, and he signed with them. Hawk Harrelson, you are looking so good. Thanks for joining us on the Games People Play Media Network for Still Ugly.
My pleasure, Harry.
All right, so when you think back, first of all, we've got you leading off today. When was the last time Hawk Harrelson was inserted in the leadoff spot? Did you ever hit leadoff in your life?
No. No, I didn't. I was trying to remember. I think there was one game that I did. There was a game against Cincinnati. It was an exhibition game, Alvin Dark. I didn't want to play because I've been playing every day, and we had the Ohio thing. It was Cleveland versus Cincinnati, the Reds. And I didn't want to play. He said, well, you got to. He said, these fans are coming here to watch you play. He said, I'll tell you what. He said, you hit leadoff, and if you get on, if you get a base hit, you can get out of here. And I said, okay, so Johnny Bench was catching, and I told him, I said, if I get on, I said, I'm going to go on the first pitch, which I knew he could throw me out, right? So sure enough, I got a base hit to left field. I got on, I went on the first pitch. I got a good jump, and he didn't even get up. He just threw from his knees and nailed me by about 10 or 15 feet. And as I was walking off the field, I tipped my cap to Johnny. I went in and got showered and dressed and left. That's the only time.
You don't need a pregame pep talk. You just need to tell guys, hey, you get on base and you can go home. That's all you needed.
Yeah.
Hawk, when you look back to 1983, what memories come flooding into your memory banks?
I didn't get that, but my ear, my hearing aid is acting up. Let me see if I can get it in here.
Sure.
Okay, now say, yeah.
Hawk, when you look back to the 1983 season, what
Yes.
comes floating back into your memory banks?
Oh, so many things, Harry. I mean, that was just, the team that I played on in Kansas City that later went to Oakland and won 3 consecutive world championships. They had great chemistry. And the 83 White Sox had some of the best chemistry I've ever seen. And Tony did a great job with that club because they had parties together. They on the planes, they had fun together. We got to the hotel. He would always have a room that everybody could go up. It was like a hospitality suite, and go up there and just tell some lies, just have a good time. And then Luzinski and Jerry Koosman, those were 2 of the leaders on that ball club. And they used to sit around sometimes, especially after a tough loss, which they didn't have many that year. They won 99 games and won a division by 20. And but they would sit around at 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning drinking beer and talking baseball. You don't see that anymore. Now the game has changed and evolved into a situation where as soon as that game's over, they go in the shower and they're out of there. But we used to sit around and talk baseball, as I said, to 2, 3, 4 o'clock in the morning. And they started off poorly. I think they started off like 12-15 or 12-16. And then, as I said, wound up winning 99 games. But between Hoyt and Dotson and Banister, I believe those guys went 42-6 the second half of the season. And you won't see that again. And we had real good pitching. We had a good bullpen. And it was just a together club. And that's one thing that I remember about it, because, and Kittle won the Rookie of the Year. And, of course, Lamar, the Cy Young, as you mentioned earlier, and Richard Dotson finished second. Either one of those guys, I think Dot had 22 wins and White had 24 wins. And but Koosman was he was in the forefront. He and the Bull Luzinski, they would get on guys. I mean, they would eat their ass up. I mean, they really would. They would get on them, and if somebody didn't run anything out, back in those days, the players took care of the situation. The managers didn't have to do it. I remember Rocky Colavito, when I was playing in Kansas City, he joined us, and one of our guys popped up and didn't run it out. And he got back to the dugout, and Rocky grabbed him by the neck and said, "You ever do that again, I'm going to kick your bass." He said, "Because of the fact you're embarrassing the club, you're embarrassing the manager, you're embarrassing us, and you're embarrassing yourself." So that was the kind of attitude that the '83 White Sox had. And then when Doug Rader gave him the nickname Winning Ugly, it stuck all these years. So it became like the momentum seeker, so to speak, and the momentum giver that the club needed. And as I said, when you wind up winning 99 games and winning the division by 20, that'll tell you how dominant they were.
Yeah, Hawk, you mentioned how it was old-time baseball, that the manager didn't need to speak, that the guys, the veterans on the team, the vets would let the younger players know, hey, that's not the way we do it around here. We shared a friend in the late, great Milt Pappas. And Milt used to get so upset when guys would leave the team to go be at the birth of their kids. He would get upset when they would go to their kids' or their grandkids' graduation. He said, that's not the way we did it back then. Do you have any problem now, looking back on it? Do you have any problem now with today's players that I've seen managers do it, leave the team for a game or two to go be at the birth of a child? Milt used to say they know it takes 9 months. They should have planned it better.
Well, no, there are not many people. I think there are only about 5 or maybe 6 guys who've been in baseball longer than I have. And that is being in professional baseball, all the parts of 8 decades. So I've seen a few things. And if you're going to be in baseball that long, you have to learn how to adjust. And that's what the game has evolved in, a game of adjustments now, because society is different. And I don't blame these players at all, because these players are only doing what they were taught. And that's the way they came up in high school and college and everything else. We came up in a different culture. We came up in one where it was a hard-nosed type thing. You bust your ass every day, you play hard, and you have fun. And these guys today, in their own way, do the same thing. It's just they do it in a different type of tone, so to speak. And like they go up in between innings, and in the clubhouse. And you couldn't go into the clubhouse in between innings when I played in my era. You do that, and you're going to get fined. I mean, big. And when I say big, I'm talking about $50, $100, because that was a lot of money back in those days, especially when the minimum salary was $6,000. In my first 2 years in the major leagues, I made more money playing golf, shooting pool, and arm wrestling than I did playing Major League Baseball. So you didn't go in the clubhouse during the game. You sat there, and the managers, what they would do a lot of times is most of the time, if you weren't playing that day, he would come to you before the game and say, okay, look, I want you to watch the third base coach, or I want you to watch the first base coach, or I want you to watch whatever, and see if you can get any tell, any pick up the signs or whatever. So that kept you in the ball game. And that doesn't happen today at all either. But it's the way these guys play. I'll tell you what, these guys are better players than we were. I was just a tick above average major league player. And these guys today who were a tick above average major league players, they were so much better than I was. It's not even funny because of the fact you got a big Latin, influence and influx of Latin players now. And it's like the White Sox. I told Jerry, our owner, I said, Jerry, this is the best position players wise. This is the most talent you've ever had since you've been here since 1982. And of course, that pitching staff that the 83 Sox had, as I mentioned, it was just a complete ball club that came together. And the manager allowed it. Tony LaRussa allowed them to come together. And once they did, Tony just got out of the way. That's what good managers do. They get the hell out of the way and let them play.
The unmistakable presence, the very soothing voice of Hawk Harrelson is joining us on the Games People Play Media Network for a celebration of the 1983 winning ugly Chicago White Sox. Hawk, bullpen by committee is not supposed to work. You need a closer, but the White Sox had 4 guys that had at least 7 saves, and nobody believes me when I tell them Dennis Lamp led the team in saves. How did that work with the White Sox?
Well, Tony was actually the guy who first brought in a 7th inning guy, an 8th inning guy, and a 9th inning guy. And he was the first manager to do that. And it worked. I know when he thought about it, the first time I can recall him doing that was in Boston. And we had a talk before the game, and he asked me, he said, what do you think about this? And I said, Tony, why don't you just give it a try? Just give it. And it worked. And today it's commonplace with every team, the 7th and 8th and 9th inning guy. But Lampy was good. He had that hellacious sinker. And he went out there, and he was a joy to be around too, because he had such a great personality. And Jim Kern was a hard sword. A lot of people forget about him. And we had occasionally out of the bullpen as a long guy, Salome Barojas would come in there, and he'd get the job done. And just it was a contribution. And the more players you can get contributing, the happier everybody's going to be. And that's exactly what Tony allowed the team to do.
Huck, I hate to bounce you around from present day to 83, but I know you can handle it. And you bring up the fact that, LaRussa used to use specific guys in certain situations. They're trying to speed up the game of baseball. Do you like the rule that if you bring in a new pitcher, you can no longer bring in a specialist to face 1 batter, that the guy you bring in from the bullpen has to face 3?
I hate it. I think it's absolutely bullshit. I really do. I mean, they're trying to legislate the game, and they're trying to put their fingerprint on it and whatever. Baseball fans don't care if the game goes 3.5 or 4 hours. I don't care. As long as we win, I don't care if we sit there all night, play there all night. But baseball fans don't care. And they've done this for, various reasons, one being television, and then the few fans that didn't like it are complaining about it constantly. But true baseball fans don't care how long the game goes. They just want to watch baseball. That's there because baseball is a different game. It's not a football game. It's not a basketball game. It's not a fast-paced game. It's a slower game. It takes its time. And even broadcasting, it demands, I think you got so many announcers out there today who talk too much. I mean, there's no dead air. And baseball demands dead air. And I remember talking with Kurt Gowdy, and I remember talking with Howard Cosell. And if you listen to Vin Scully, one of the all-time greats, and they allowed dead air in that ball game. That way you can use your imagination. You're just not sitting there like and listening and listening and listening. You're allowed to use your imagination. And that's what I've always thought baseball was a radio game anyway.
It's very interesting you say that. Pat Foley is awesome. I know you know Pat well, and he's the voice of the
Great.
Blackhawks. He is spectacular the way he's got, 20 guys to deal with every night on both teams, and they fly over the boards. They don't have to check in. But baseball, you're on the air for 3.5 hours, and there's maybe 18 minutes of action. So, I mean, you've got to be not only a baseball savant, but you've got to be kind of like a master of ceremonies. Is that lost on the younger announcers, or do you see a lot of good from the the new breed
Well,
of baseball announcers?
there was a writer who wrote this about Vince Scully. Said he is a play-by-play guy who tells stories, and he wrote that Hawk Harrelson is a storyteller who does play-by-play. And that's why Tom Paciorek was one of the greatest guys. You know, anybody can do a 1-0, 2-1, 3-2 ball game, because that's just a great ball game. And it handles itself, especially if you've got a good producer and a director. And those guys don't get enough credit either. Guys in the truck, they can. I used to tell Jim Mangio, who was there all the time I was, and I would, in a certain situation in a ball game, I'd just hit my cough switch and go down and tell Jimmy in his ear, all right, buddy, go to work. And I just lay out and let the pictures tell the story. Let the pictures tell. The fans who are watching, there's so much to watch on television today besides baseball. If you're going to watch a baseball game, if you're going to watch the Sox or the Cubs or whoever, you know something about the game. And the average IQ, baseball IQ of a fan today, especially with females, has grown enormously. You're getting people, all the hundreds and hundreds of letters that I get. Some of them, are from females that just absolutely know the game of baseball. So the listening audience is different now than it was. And you don't have as much time. And I think one of the big mistakes that I have a lot of young aspiring announcers who will come to the ballpark or write me and say, could you give me some tips? And if it's well written and they seem to be nice, I just tell them, just be yourself. And I would tell them the same thing that Kurt Gowdy and Howard Cosell told me. Don't try to please everybody, because you can't. It's impossible, especially in a two-team city like Chicago, like Boston and New York basically as a two-team city because of, proximity. And then you got the Dodgers and Oakland A's out there. So when you're talking about the Yankees and the Mets and the Red Sox, you can't please everybody, because you're going to have a lot of, and I told Jason this, Benetti, who's a terrific announcer now, and he's going to get better and better and better. I told him, I said, you're going to catch some unwarranted criticism because you're in a two-team city, and you're going to have some Cub fans who don't like you and they hate the White Sox. They're going to be calling up the score, whoever it may be, and ripping on you. And the same thing happens with now Casper and those guys with the Cubs are terrific announcers. I enjoy listening to them, when the Sox are not on, and they're going to catch some criticism as well. So it's checks and balances. It's checks and balances. You got to understand what's going on, and if you do, then you can handle it. If you don't, then it'll drive you crazy. And I've got a thick skin. I've been ripped by the best in the world, and I've been praised by the best in the world. So, it's checks and balances.
Just a few more minutes with the great Hawk Harrelson, a legendary broadcaster, 33 years behind the mic for the Chicago White Sox. We're chatting with Hawk here on the Games People Play Media Network for our Win Ugly special called Still Ugly. Hawk, a lot of people around the world are forced to stay home. We've got the holidays not too far in the distant future. I read your book a couple years ago. It's outstanding read. So many great baseball stories. Why don't you tell us about that book real quick before we let you get out of here?
Well, Jeff Snook, who was with me on the book, he's the one that put the words together, and cut and sliced and diced. The original manuscript was something. I can tell you that right now. It was, so my wife read it and she said, that's not going to work. That's not going to cut it. My daughter read it. Dad, that's not you. My son read it. Dad, that's not good. So we had to go in and redo it over again because there are some things in every career, in every aspect of professionalism, doctors, lawyers, baseball players, announcers, some things you got to go to the grave with, and I'm going to the grave with a lot of stuff because that's the way. So we got some of it in there. My wife was the chairman of the board, CEO of the Harrelson family. I can tell you that right now, and she what she says for the most part goes. And that's the reason we've been happily married, for 47 years. So she's my baby doll, and my Greek baby doll. But the book, I think we could probably do another one.
Really?
It won't be a kiss and tell. I can tell you that right now. I just don't like those books. The one like Jim Bouton put out against Mickey Mantle a long time ago. You're a little young to remember that, but
Before, when they leave the note, they fake the restaurant name. They tell them drive out to the restaurant to meet us, and they go there, and it's just like a deserted, burnt down store.
Yeah. I mean, I just don't believe in that. I don't believe. I believe you gotta, I guess they call it today, man up and eat some of the stuff that you've gone through.
Okay, so the book that people want to buy now, what's the title of that book?
Hawk.
How'd you get that title? So the new book, do you have a title for it?
The new one?
Yeah.
I wanted to end that book right there, Hawk, by just a simple thing, to be continued. So it would leave your mind open so you could understand there's more coming. And
I've got an idea, just a suggestion for the new book title. How about What You Talking About, Wayner?
Who's become a great friend of mine is Joe West. Joe and I text each other and talk to each other probably once or twice a week. And every time when I'm watching a game that I see an umpire, I'll call Joe or text him, and I'll say, look, I want you to watch this tape and see how horseshit this guy was. He starts laughing. But Joe is going to break the all-time record for games called. He's one of the greatest, if not the greatest umpire in the history of the game. And you've heard me say it, Harry, many, many times. My first two rules about winning a Major League Baseball game. The first rule is you got to catch the ball. If you're going to give the other team, 30, 31, 32 outs, and you're going to get 27, you're not going to beat them. You got to catch the ball. And the next rule is don't mess with Joe West.
Country Joe will take you out.
Oh, yeah.
Hawk, it's always great chatting with you. We've celebrated the 83 Sox, but I got to ask you about these guys. I got to ask you about, Abreu's having an unbelievable year.
Yep.
And, they've got Moncada. They've got Luis Robert, Eloy Jimenez. They've got, Madrigal was a great draft pick. My favorite player on the team is Tim Anderson. And Giolito has come on these last, 2 seasons, have been terrific. What is your perspective of this White Sox club? How far can they go?
They can go all the way, Harry. But I can tell you this club is only going to go as well as Tim Anderson. Tim Anderson is absolutely, in that lineup, he's the leader of this ball club. That man was, if you recall, up until lately, when he's had this going in this funk, he was getting base hits, hitting home runs. And usually, I think it's about 65, 67% of the time, the team that scores first wins that ball game. And we were scoring first a lot of games. And we're not scoring first in a lot of games right now, but we will come out of it because we got the perfect manager. Rick Renteria is just, with all the Latin players that we have, if Tim Anderson is sitting out for a week or something, if he had an injury or whatever, we could put 9 Latin players on the field at one time. So in my days, I remember when the Pittsburgh Pirates fielded 5 African-American players, and everybody went crazy about that, Well, that's gone, because when I first came into baseball, there was a lot of bias. There was no question about that. A lot of racism going on, and it's not anywhere near what it was back in those days. That's the reason I had the honor and the pleasure of playing golf with Jackie Robinson. Jackie came up one day on the golf course and asked me if I had a game, and I said no. He said, can I play with you? I said, sure. We played 18 holes, Harry, and I'll tell you, it's one of the greatest 18-hole times I've ever had on a golf course in my life, because all we talked about was golf. And here's a man who, Jackie Robinson, changed our culture. What a wonderful person he was, and what a tough guy he was. But things are different now. And we're having to go through this insurrection that's going on in our country is just terrible. I mean, it's you've never seen it. I've never seen it. Andrew's never seen it. We just, and it's happened. It's got to stop. It's just we got to find a way. Our president's got to find a way to just go ahead and stop it. It's just that simple. But because it affects baseball. Look, we got no fans in the stands now. We're having to do, like we're doing right now, a lot of Zoom appearances. I like it when we got 35, 40,000 people in the seats and they're sitting there shoulder to shoulder and they're screaming and having a good time and pulling for our Sox to win, especially kicking the Cubs' ass a lot. I still want to do that. But, the only time I've ever pulled for a National League team to win the World Series was a couple of years ago when the Cubs were there. I pulled for them to win because it was going to be great for baseball. It was going to be great for our great city. And they did. And outside of that, as I said, I want to kick their ass every time we play them.
Well, Hawk, if there's a guy, we'll get a Sox-Cubs World Series this year. But I'd say the Sox are in pretty great shape. And Reinsdorf should be commended because, he's not getting any younger. And a lot of owners would be now. And Reinsdorf has always been a very intelligent man. He said, we got to tear this thing down if we want to build it right up again. There's only one thing missing from this season, and that's Hawkaroo. Dadgummit, I wish I could cuss. Mercy, where's the one dog at? Come on, put it on the board. Yes. Hawk,
I miss it.
Hawk. And thank you so much for leading us off here on Still Ugly on the Games People Play Media Network. Take care of yourself. And if you get a chance in the near future, why don't you go out and play a little golf?
You got it, buddy.
The White Sox win it 4-3. Pandemonium here at Comiskey Park. The fireworks are off. The fans on the field. The Sox all making their way to the dugout.
Welcome back to a celebration of the 83 White Sox, still ugly after all these years, on the Games People Play Media Network. And look at that smiling mug right smack dab in the middle of the screen. 83 was a special time. The record of the year was Beat It by Michael Jackson. The song of the year was Every Breath You Take by Sting and the Police. And every breath this guy took, every time a pitcher threw a pitch, he would beat it, and all the fans would watch every breath he took. Local boy made great, Ron Kittle. Thanks so much for joining us on the celebration of your 83 team. How are you, Kitty?
I appreciate that. Great seeing you. I haven't seen you for a while.
No, you look great as always. You look young, you look happy, and you just came back from visiting one of the 7 wonders of the world. Tell the Sox fans where you just came back from.
One of my favorite places to drive motorcycles in with my better half is the Badlands of South Dakota and Wyoming. So we hit Mount Rushmore, we hit Devil's Tower. We put about 2,000 miles on motorcycle. We probably killed 4 billion bugs while we were out there. And, we wanted to go to Sturgis towards the rally, but with everything transpiring about the COVID disease, we elected not to. So we decided to go out there now. We saw more wildlife. It was the best riding time ever because the weather was 45 in the morning and close to 80 in the afternoon. We saw everything you could possibly see out there, and there was nobody in front of us and nobody behind us. So we were very safe and secure, and we had a great time.
Mount Rushmore I got to see it, and, I'd seen it on television. I had seen it in the Hitchcock movie, North by Northwest. And it's going to be cool, but you have no idea how epic it is till you're out there staring at those 4 man-made figures that are hand-sculpted that took decades to prepare. It's just crazy. And I think if you look closely enough, the third head over is Hawk Harrelson.
Yeah, well, somebody asked me where I was going. I said I was going to Mount Reinsdorf to see. I even told him I was going there. He goes, "Don't go that crazy." But like you said, pictures and videos don't do it justice. See, there should not be a person in the United States that doesn't take a tour up there to visit, to look at this, because it's all inspiring. Everything up there, you got the Crazy Horse monument being built now,
Right.
and there's an opening underneath his arm where it's extended. It's 9 stories tall. And the government wants to take hold and finish it and complete it. But, when you get the government involved in things out there, they want their penny and everything. So the private sector is building it on their own. They're doing a great job. It's just fresh air, beautiful country, mountains, elk, mountain lion, buffalo. We almost hit a couple bisons. I've had them like 3 feet from me. I could have petted them. And I was ready to jump off, but just as long as you don't bother them, they're not going to bother you.
Well, I tell you, Sox fans weren't bothered by the '83 team that you played on. You were a local boy that just 1 second you're tooling around Gary, and the next second you're smack dab in the middle of the lineup. 35 homers, 100 RBI, Rookie of the Year for number 42, Ron Kittle. And Ron, what did you tell me once, that you were so good that they had to, what did they do with your number?
They retired it everywhere in the world, number 42.
I love that. So, it must have been a thrill to play in the bigs. What was it like playing for the Chicago White Sox?
Well, my career started earlier with the Dodgers organization. I had a bad injury. I was out of baseball. Given a second chance to play, I came up there not thinking I was better than anybody or anybody was better than me. Our '83 team had a great chemistry, and I would have never used that word 50 years ago, but I've heard it a billion times by Hawk Harrelson and everybody else. We just gelled good. We had a mix of talent, and every night there was a different hero. And but when the bell rang between the lines from Tony LaRussa and our great coaching staff, it was fun. It was enjoyable to go to the ballpark.
And that was Tony's first managerial gig. He came in the middle of '79. So he was 4.5 years into his career when he got there. And a lot of people forget there was a pretty good manager at third base. Was it hard for Jim Leyland to go through an entire pack of cigarettes during one game?
No, it was hard for him to go through a pack of cigarettes that didn't explode, because Mark Hill used to put little firecrackers in his cigarettes. And he would go down to the tunnel and he'd light one up and it'd explode. Then you'd hear him cuss like a banshee. But you know what? It was, you needed a Mark Hill on the team. You needed a Jerry Koosman, Greg Luzinski. I keep in touch with Harold Baines, Greg Walker, and those guys 2 or 3 times a week. We talk on the phone. We text. It was as close as a family as you possibly could have had in baseball.
I remember the game against the Brewers when there used to be that rule that you couldn't start an inning after 1 a.m. And you guys ended up playing 23 innings with Milwaukee, and I think Seaver won 2 games the same day. And Mark Hill was playing third base. I loved it.
Well, yeah, I remember that game. It was matter of fact, I think I got hurt in the second inning jumping for a home run, and I landed on. That was the year that it was solid brick in the outfield. I wound up rolling over my ankle. It swelled up. It was black and blue. I got taken out of the game. Jerry Hairston did it 2 innings later, the exact same situation. And, they moved people around that day. So the third day, they put pads on the outfield so nobody would hit into it and ruin their feet. But, Harold Baines came out of hitting a home run. Seaver was pitching the second game of the doubleheader. And he goes, I'll go out there and get loose. He did. He got a win. He got 2 wins that day.
2 for the price of 1. I love it. Luzinski used to talk about how thrilling it was for all the home runs he hit to land them on the roof, the same roof that Babe Ruth landed home runs on, that Lou Gehrig hit a couple on. Jimmy Fox, I think,
6.
had 4. You waited till September, and then you belted a couple of home runs that I think might still be in the air right now. It's got to be so cool to hit a home run in Major League Baseball. What's it like hitting one on the roof at Old Comiskey?
During my tryout in '78, I hit one on there. Bruce Del Canton, he was the pitching coach at the time.
Former Brave.
That was at my tryout, and I never thought it would get up there, but it made everybody else say, that's a long way up there. But, like you said, Babe Ruth hit the first. I hit the last. Bull hit 3, Jimmy Fox hit 6, and I finished up hitting 7 total. And, you know, they're comparing these home runs that these guys are hitting now. You had to hit it over 550 feet to get it to the roof. You know, and they're saying that these young kids are hitting it towards the concourse. They're going 500 feet. I think Bull and I would disagree on that wholeheartedly, how hard you got to hit it up there.
So, you know, Bull was playing a lot of DH with you guys, but I remember that when he played left, and when he played left for the Phillies, he used to have that weird kind of angled stance. He wouldn't face the batter. He would want to get a break on the ball. He'd kind of stand sideways. I always worried that, like, if I were one of his teammates in the clubhouse and he came to the urinal next to me, did he have the same stance then?
You know, he might have, but you know, when you're when you know what your body can do. Obviously, everybody's either better coming in or going back, going to the right or to the left. So obviously, he was heading to his best direction. But when you wore glasses in the outfield at any of the older ballparks, those lights were dim yellow, and you needed to keep the glare off your glasses. I used to tell that to Jerry all the time. I mean, the old Comiskey Park, I call it Old Sox Park, was down, home plate was above, and the backstop was about 6 feet lower. So you're looking at baseballs coming out of everybody's shirts at the same time. You couldn't even see the ball. So you got to keep the deflection of the light off your glasses out there. And it was, besides, it was always wet. So when they hosed all the beer out of the stadium, it went to right and left field. So Harold and I used to have to put plastic bags on our feet to keep our feet dry.
So, you know, Kitty, usually a team has one strength, but you guys could hit the ball, you had starting pitching, and you had bullpen by committee, which frankly never works, but it was working with you guys. You had four guys with at least 7 saves. When you think about that 83 Sox, why do you think you guys were so dominant to win your division by a remarkable 20 games?
Well, you know, we had a mixture of everything. We had seasoned veterans. We had a few mid-range players who had a couple years in the big leagues, and I think we had 4 or 5 rookies at the time on you know, Scotty Fletcher and myself and Greg Walker. They talked baseball. They had fun after the game. We had a lot of baseball meetings or parties, whatever you wanted to call them. But everybody there enjoyed going to the ballpark. And you got Lamar Hoyt, Floyd Banister, Rich Dotson, Jerry Koosman. I mean, these guys were as good as they were. And a couple of them played on winning teams before, so they knew what you had to do. But I got to really take it back to Tony LaRussa, Jimmy Leland, Eddie Brinkman, Charlie Lau. We had one of the best coaching staffs probably in the history of baseball, not just for the White Sox, for all extended. Dave Duncan is our pitching coach, Davey Nelson. I mean, Artie Kushner. I mean, he kept the team loose.
Dave.
The Cave, he, you know, but those guys, they knew baseball. And Jimmy Leland was a manager in himself. So that's having 2 managers on the same team. And, you know, it's nice to chit chat when I see all these guys all the time, but they were very prepared every single ball game.
You know, the guys that, just like you just did, the guys that played for the White Sox rave about the batting instruction they got from Charlie Lau. What did Charlie teach you at the dish?
Well, you know, I swung like Charlie taught when I was in high school. So him and I kind of just hit it off. You know, he put me on the cover as one of his books. I've always swung like that. I never knew it was Charlie Lau style. I didn't know what it was called. I just hit. You know, I grew up picking up rocks, hitting with a broomstick. If you can hit, you can hit. When you're going good, you can throw a tic-tac at me and I can hit it. There's days when you're not going so good you couldn't hit a beach ball. But Charlie was very soft-spoken. I go into Kansas City, and I mean, I'm hitting pretty well. And I think I was like 0 for 9. And I hit the ball on the button, and Willie Wilson was running things down like I was a little leaguer. You know, so you're outs. And I wanted to have early hitting. So Charlie put a ball on top of home plate. I'll never forget this. And he goes, hit it like a golf ball. So I hit 2 balls that like skipped off the rubber of home plate and a line drive up to center field. And he goes, you're done hitting. You know, and it's like 1 o'clock. He goes, no, you got your stuff. You got your head right. And so, you know, staying healthy was a key. Communicating with players. I mean, there's no secret to this game. If you stay healthy and you're talented, you're going to do all right. because your brain is probably the things that ruins most people's careers. If you think, you stink.
I'll have to remember that. My wife tells me the "you stink" part all the time, but I don't have the "you think" part in front of it. The jovial young man we're trying to get out of his shell, that's Ron Kittle, who was Rookie of the Year in 1983 and had a wonderful baseball career. Kitty is visiting with us on the Games People Play Media Network for our 83 celebration. It's called Still Ugly After All These Years. Ron, when did you think that you might be the American League Rookie of the Year?
I started the season, I wanted to be the best in the whole league. That's the way you got to think. That's how I was brought up. I came back from a broken neck. I was paralyzed. I was completely out of baseball.
Say that again so people understand where you came from to become the guy that hit 35 homers and 100 RBI.
Well, I started with the Dodgers out of a tryout camp. And I was ironworking at the time. I had to go ironworking or go to college to play basketball. So I went to the tryout. I did very well, signed for a bonus, go to spring training with the Dodgers, and I opened up in Clinton, Iowa with Mike Scioscia, Mickey Hatcher. We had a great team. My first at bat, I hit a double. Mike Scioscia hits a bloop single. The next hitter, I round the base, slid in the home plate, and the catcher landed on me, and he broke my neck, and I was paralyzed at home plate. First game, first at bat. And so it was probably 30 days before I started really was able to do anything. So, as an 18-year-old kid, you just want to play. So I would play a week, then it would hurt. So my neck never hurt me. Everything else hurt on me. And it got to the point where I think I hit 250 that year, 7 home runs, 25 RBIs, and 100 at-bats. And I get home, and my teeth are bleeding. And I go to the doc. My dad takes me to the doctor, and I have 3 crushed vertebrae and a cracked spinal cord. And the doctor goes, "What are you doing playing?" And it was like 2 days later, I had major surgery with the screws in my head and a halo. And they said, "You'll never play sports again the rest of your life." So I wasn't a big fan of the doctor, but I had a tough dad. I had a tough dad. And he made me, I think I would have, if I died, he probably wouldn't have had no compassion for me. But he made me realize that you got to become strong. And I ran like a deer. I used to switch hit. And I just got I went working out with Nautilus, got strong, went from like 185 to 245 solid muscle. And I went to another trial camp and signed with the White Sox.
That's unbelievable. Ron, when you guys were playing, it was old-time baseball. We talked a little bit with Hawk about how LaRussa would kind of set up a room in every hotel on the road to give you guys a chance to just kind of unwind with each other. That you didn't have to like go off in little cliques. You didn't have to hit the bar or go to the hotel next door. You could just kind of unwind and be together and stuff. That was a time when baseball didn't have all these rules. Of the rules today, Hawk got all over the fact you can't bring a guy in to face one hitter, but he's got to face 3. What do you like or what do you dislike that they've done with the game? Would you have loved the ability to have challenged the call? If you thought the umpire made a bad play, would you have loved that?
Well, all sports are dictated on an error, human error. So there's no perfect umpire. There's no perfect pitcher, hitter, whatever it is. You win and lose by error. Do I like it? If it makes the call correct, it's fine with me. Getting back to what Hawk said, Tony would get, they always had giant suites at the hotels we had, and we'd order 10, 15 pizzas. You'd have beer, pop, whatever you want. Not everybody drank. And they get up there and they talk BS, whatever it is. And, Jimmy Leland would sing, and, we had all kind of, different personalities up there all the time. Some would go up there to eat. I've been an early bird my entire life. So during the season, I would wake up 5, 6 o'clock. I'd go eat breakfast. Then I wouldn't stay out after midnight a lot of because I don't like to eat late. I still don't. So you had your personalities, but you had Bull. He might have stayed up late, but he didn't wake up till 2, 3 o'clock in the afternoon. But when they went to the ballpark, they were prepared. I think, is it easier to play now than it is back then? I think back then every team had 3 ace pitchers and at least 2 or 3 good, closers towards the end, and maybe a closer. Nowadays, you got maybe 1 or 2 star pitchers. They're throwing somebody out there, like you said, one batter, whatever it is. That would probably drive me crazy. But I think as a hitter, I would have been more productive now because you can't get hit. So Luzinski would hit a home run. I'd get drilled in the side. He hit it. Why did he hit me? Harold hit a home run. I'd get hit in the side. You can't throw at pitchers now or hitters nowadays. So these guys are getting big swings every at bat. I mean, it's not that they're throwing over 100 miles an hour. I mean, these guys throw hard, but back then you had guys that threw 3 or 4 or 5 pitches over the plate at any particular time. And the pitchers who do that now, Harry, are the ones that are having great success.
Yeah, it doesn't seem right. The purpose pitch is gone. You don't have the ability to respond in the way that you used to have. You mentioned getting hit, so I have to bring up the playoffs when the season ended too short. Lamar Hoyt was remarkable in game 1. You guys get the win in Baltimore. Then Boddicker pitches the game of his life in game 2. You come back to the south side of Chicago for game 3, and you got hit by a pitch.
Yeah.
Is it true that Richard Dotson went up and down the dugout taking a survey from your teammates saying, who do you guys want me to hit because I'm drilling someone?
Well, I don't know if it was that direct, but I hit a double earlier against Mike Flanagan and an RBI, and I had success against them all year. So that at bat that I got hit, it was a 3-0 count, and he only walked 6 people all year. So the guy could hit like a thumbtack if he wanted to. So I had a 3-0 count with a man. I can't remember if there was a first and second situation, and he hit me on the kneecap and broke my kneecap. I tried to play 1 inning and it just swelled up twice the size. I couldn't have played in the World Series. That's how bad it was if we would have went on. But that took me out of the game. And you got to be upset because I was Harold and I were the only ones hitting. Bull and Pudge, they weren't hitting at the time. And so one of the bats are gone, it just happened. I wanted to go charge the mound, and Rick Dembski grabbed me. And Al Clark, I think, was the umpire, tried to hold me back. And he goes, Kitty, I'm trying to hold you back. I know you can lift both of us up and throw us over the stadium roof, but, at least make me look good.
And obviously you couldn't play game 4 when Britt Burns had the game of his life. Yeah. And you guys ended up going into extras without a score. And Tito Landrum sent the Sox fans home with a upper deck shot that was really remarkable for all the power they had. You don't think Tito Landrum's going to be the guy that's going to go to the upper deck on you. Years later, you would play for the Orioles. Was there a moment where you walked out into that stadium and you thought, I don't like you guys. You took away 83 from me.
Well, Andy and I talked a little bit about that. So I get traded over there. I had family relatives around the vicinity. I love playing baseball. I love playing it. I don't like watching it, but I love playing it. I had mixed feelings. Had nothing to do with the playoffs because when you're in the minor leagues, you play against those guys coming up. Then they get to the big leagues like I would have got to the big leagues. So I knew Junior, Billy, and half the staff over there. It wasn't fun when I got traded because we were in first place. We're half a game out. Kurt Schilling, Pete Harnish, and another guy got hurt, and we went 8 games out quickly within a week. So I got traded to play, and I wasn't even playing. So I probably had 20, 30 at-bats in 3.5 months, and they were against the best pitchers. So I really just disliked a lot of people at the time. Because when you go from playing every day to not playing, and one of the things that really kind of got me is I think I had a $150,000 clause if I had one more at bat, in the last 2.5 months. For 2.5 months, I didn't play the game. They wouldn't put me in the game. So I was joking with Cal Ripken Sr., and he goes, I just hate seeing this happen. And I told him, I said, Senior, I said, the only way I'd get in a game, if the plane crashed, all the players died, and they'd still call up AAA players, and I wouldn't get to play, you know, and he would smoke his little Lucky Strike, and he said, you're probably right.
You know, Reinsdorf would have written your check even if you had missed your at-bat by one.
Yeah, there's no better owner in professional sports than Jerry Reinsdorf. I'm telling you that right now. I mean, we've come a little bit closer as friends. That's the reason I'm working for the Chicago White Sox, Jerry Reinsdorf. I mean, I love the people that I'm around. I miss the staff daily. I mean, I could care less about the players. Really, it doesn't bother me a bit because I don't have any interaction with them at all. You know, I ask for an autograph for my charity. If they don't sign it, I'll never talk to them again. You know, because I've been doing my charity work for 30 plus years and raised $3 million. So if they think it's for my benefit, they need to shake themselves a little bit. But Jerry's a rock star in this industry.
Okay, so before we end our conversation, can you expound on your charity? And then I got one more thing I want to ask you about.
Ron, it started out as Indiana Sports Charities because I lived in Indiana, detailed with sports, and you know, people get old, they retire, they die, they move on, and I moved to Illinois, so we changed the name of it to Ron Kittle Charities. We've been doing for cancer research and education and numerous for children's pediatric care, and I kind of pony up alongside White Sox charities, but you know, we've raised $3 million plus, and you know, there's a lot of celebrities that have charities. I lick the stamps, I write the letters, I make the phone calls, I show up, I get the memorabilia, because I love people that say, well, that's not signed because it's not authenticated. I said, I'm 6'4", 250. I authenticate everything I get. You know, that's good enough for those guys. And so it gives me great pleasure to do that. So in the last 4 years, I did a cigar event. And the first one was for Jerry Reinsdorf. It's called the Cigar Social. You know, Jerry's a cigar guy. You know, if he was a vegan, I'd have a vegan event for Jerry, but he smoked cigars. So then we had Harold Baines, we honored him. Then we honored Jim Thome. And this year we're going to honor the 83 team. We're going to have a little function. It's not going to be normal, but we'll represent the 83 players, maybe do cutouts. I don't know what it is because you know, the whole world's a mess right now. And some of these guys, I'd rather have them as a cutout because I don't want to talk to them. But it's still ronkittlecharities.org and ronkittle.com is my webpage where I build stuff.
And the stuff you build is unbelievable. You know, so again, it's ronkittlecharities.org. And, you know, you can give, if you have it, $500, or you can give, you know, $10, whatever you want to give. It's important. And what Christine does with White Sox Charities is also spectacular. So tell us now, if I wanted to have a bench made of actual, you know, baseball bats used by ball players in the bigs, you're the guy for that, right?
I am the guy. I've been making them for maybe 30 years themselves. Somebody posted on social media the bench that I made for George Lopez, the comedian. And it was on his NBC show in the backyard. And he wanted Roberto Clemente bats. I go, there is no Roberto Clemente bats. So I tracked down his widow at the time, and I bought 18 of his bats. And I got an invoice. I can't tell you this. My daughter called me and says, Dad, it's a COD. So I'm golfing at a charity event. And I said, up in my closet, there's a Nike shoebox with money in it. Go in there. And she comes out, and I think I had $3,000 to $5,000 in that shoebox at the time, because and she goes, "No, Dad, it's $54,000." So I had to leave the golf tournament, come home, go to the bank, and get money to buy those bats to build him a bench.
That's awesome, and I've seen the benches. You can see them online. They're spectacular. For the guy that has everything, how about a bench handmade by Ron Kittle? There's still one at the ballpark, right?
Yeah, there's a couple of them out there,
Yeah.
and you know, average price is $2,500 to $3,000. You got 18 bats times
People
100
have
bucks.
that in their shoebox.
Well, not everybody has a shoebox like I got. But it's a piece of art, and I do them now with humidors, and it's great. It's a great mental relief when I do stuff. I go to the shop, I have great tools. I like spending time out there to do it, and I do it to perfection. But I've been, I made Harold Baines a steel sculpture statue for his Hall of Fame. I presented him on the field. Jim Thome, I made an 8-foot bat. Derek Jeter, I got commissioned a piece for him that the White Sox paid for. Big Poppy, when he retired with Boston, I made him a custom humidor filled full of cigars. And so, I get to make some pretty unique items for some special people.
Absolutely. And you're a special guy, and I've seen you with fans. You always have time for fans. Even if you're in a hurry trying to catch a movie or you're meeting someone running late, you always have time for fans, and I appreciate that. I've got to ask you about this team. This team on the field, we've waited years to have this White Sox club come up, and all these young guys come up, and they're as good as advertised. What do you think? Look into your crystal baseball. What do you think happens to the White Sox at the end of these playoffs?
Well, right now, they lost 4 games in a row. It's nothing to panic about because there's some good teams out there. Cleveland, Minnesota, these guys can play. And, you got Roberts having a good year, but he's struggling a little bit right now. He's not struggling because he can't do it. He's trying so doggone hard. And I think what happens when you try hard in this game, you wound up making more mistakes. And, that's where you need senior leadership on a team to tell him to calm down and have some fun and enjoy it. I don't know, Ricky Renteria, but you got your priorities staying healthy first. I'm glad they brought Yomer Sanchez back. He's one of my favorite players. I mean, you need a guy on a team just like that because the enthusiasm, he plays hard, wins a Gold Glove, now he can't get a job. It's different. Giolito, he can pitch. Rodon, I guess they just took him off the DL today. If I'm the manager, I'm walking to him. I said, I can't say the word I want to say, but it's shit or get off the pot. You got to do it. He's been on the DL 3/4 of his career. His career's done. If he can't do it, Michael Kopech, he's at home because he's got issues. I mean, hell, everybody in the world's got issues. Get out there and pitch, Michael Kopech. That's how I feel about it. I'm your hardcore kind of guy. When I played on the 83 team and with Wimpy, I didn't care if anybody liked me. I went out there to play hard, give everything I possibly could every single day. And, and it works. You're going to talk to Wimpy soon. Funny, love him to death. I mean, him and I have been doing fantasy camps for 25 years after playing together. And, it's like we just saw each other yesterday when I haven't seen him in 2 years. It's just a connection that 83 team had that was special. But we got the talent to get hot. We got to get hot at the right time right now with the current team, and we can win some ball games because it's going to be over quick. There's no day off. It's got to get up and get it.
Right. I was told if I want something to last longer, I should think about baseball. But I love baseball. Sometimes when I'm at a Sox game, I have to think about sex just to, keep calm.
You got to set you back a couple years.
Kitty, you're awesome. Thanks for joining us on the brand new Games People Play Media Network for the celebration, Still Ugly After All These Years. You're one of a kind. We love you. And again, it's ronkittle.org. And it is
RonKittleCharities.org.
RonKittleCharities.org. My mistake.
RonKittle.com.
And bat benches?
No, yeah, anything you want. I can make it. Let me know.
All right, Donnie, you see some of the players starting to come in right now, and what a situation. Harold Baines knocking in a winning run, and Julio Cruz scoring it. As you look at the fans out there now, enjoying first time in 24 years, the Sox on top.
You're enjoying the Games People Play Media Network and our celebration of the 1983 White Sox team winning ugly. We call this Still Ugly After All These Years. How long ago was 83? This is the year that Jimmy V and the NC State Wolfpack won. They beat Houston, Phi Slamma Jamma, for the national championship. And the movie of the year, it wasn't E.T., it wasn't Tootsie, it was Gandhi. Okay, so that's how long ago this was. We had a chance to catch up with the very affable, wonderful first baseman of that White Sox team, Tom Paciorek, who joined us by phone. I think flip phone.
In the stretch drive of our special celebration of the 1983 Chicago White Sox win and ugly team, we are now joined by such a special hitter and a special guy, beloved in Chicago as a player first, and then as a broadcaster, Tom Paciorek. Wimpy, thanks for giving us some time on the brand new Games People Play Media Network for our Still Ugly special. How are you, Mr. Paciorek?
I'm great, and thank you so much for including me, Harry. I'm really looking forward to this interview because it brings back so many fond memories of 1983.
It was right in the middle of your tenure with the White Sox as a player. So if I just said, if we were playing like the $25,000 pyramid, and I said, things you remember about the 1983 season, what would you say?
Well, the first thing that comes to my mind is that everybody had a nickname, which is very unusual today. We had guys like the Booter. Mark Hill was the Booter, Coozer, Jerry Koosman, Kitty Cat, Herschel Walker, and even one of our, Humperdinck, Jim Leland was known as Humperdinck. And then Eddie Brinky Boy, and the Bull, of course, and Pud, Spanky, and let's not forget the Whimperoo. And Dot and Lamar, and these guys. You don't think of them by name. I always associate these guys by their nicknames. And how about Julio Cruz, the Cruiser? He came in and really ignited that team. I thought that one of the really unsung heroes of that season was the great trade that Roland Heeman made with Seattle when he got Julio Cruz to the ball club and just ignited. Put that speed factor and great defense into that team, which we were lacking at that time.
Yeah, for Tony Bernizard, and Tony Bernizard got banished to Seattle, who I believe finished like 700 games out of first place, and Julio Cruz went to the team that won the division by 20 games. Poor Tony Bernizard, he must lie awake at night thinking, what did I ever do to that guy?
Yeah, you got to be lucky sometimes. Sometimes the trades are good for you and sometimes they don't work out so well, but you have to make the best out of them regardless of where you're going to be.
Yeah, now you were known as one of the game's, great hitters, and you finished with, a bunch of RBI in your career, and you, 540,000 RBI, something like that.
Yeah, I'll go with that.
Yeah, right. 504, 540.
Growing, Harry,
you made play after play at first base. So what I want to know is, playing first, are you the kind of guy that would talk to the enemy if he got on bag?
Absolutely. I love doing that. I thought it was a duty of a first baseman to do that. To get acquainted with the opposition and pray that the ball wasn't going to be hit to me. First and foremost. But, there were some guys that were real interesting people that you could talk to and were really fun. And other guys, they had their game face on. And, and so you didn't mess with those kind of guys.
Well, Tom, give us one of these. Who was a guy that was fun? Who was a guy that was fun to talk to?
Oh, the fun guy? Well, geez, Rick Dempsey always comes to mind. Cal Ripken was great, and Eddie Murray. And on the other hand, the other side of that, Kirk Gibson, you didn't want any part of him. He was a game facer from the get-go. But most of the guys, it's a fraternity. Baseball is a fraternity, Harry. And most of the guys are really tremendous people, and they have a sense of humor too, because you're stuck with these guys for 7.5 months every year, and so you better get to know them, and you better get to like them, and you better have a sense of humor because somebody's going to be playing a practical joke on you sooner or later.
Well, Tom. Right now, the Sox have a bevy of Cuban players. They became the first team a couple weeks ago to start their lineup with 4 players born in Cuba. You guys, in a city with the largest Polish population in America, were loaded with Polish people. you had the Bull, right? Luzinski, you had Dubzinski, and you had yourself.
Right.
Were you like gods anytime that you were in the Polish community during your stay in Chicago? Did you ever pay for a pierogi?
Oh, absolutely not. But, the only disappointment was when I got to Chicago and they asked me, Nancy Faust requested, what song would you like to be played when you come up to the plate? And naturally, I took Beer Barrel Polka, but it was already taken for Luzinski, the Bull, and so I couldn't have it. So I settled for Bobby Vinton's Moja Droga Jak się kocha, Melody of Love.
Return to
me.
You could have worn the powder blue bell bottoms like Bobby Vinton, and nobody would have said a thing.
Nobody would have said a thing. Well, there's a bad thing. Remember with Jack Buck? Bobby and Bobby Vinton is Polish. We all know that. And he messed up the national anthem one night in Pittsburgh at the All-Star game. And Buck said, "Well, I guess if you're Polish and you're from Pittsburgh, you can sing the anthem any way you want." So I think Jack was reprimanded from that. And then there's another great character in the game. You meet the Harry Careys, the Jack Bucks. God, these are great memories that you have forever. Yesterday, I talked to Tommy Lasorda. It was his 93rd birthday. How about that? Yeah.
How is Tommy doing?
Doing great. He's doing great. He's moving around. Of course, with this virus going around, he doesn't move around as much as he'd like to. And he'd be at every ball game, I guarantee you, if they didn't have if the games weren't played in the environment that they're in right now.
I remember he lost a bunch of weight once, and he came to Wrigley Field, and he was in the booth with Harry, and Harry goes, "How'd you lose your weight?" And he goes, "Well, I stopped drinking. I stopped drinking, and you can have just as much fun when you go out at night if you're not drinking as if you are drinking." And Harry Carey just started laughing. He goes, "You're wrong."
You're wrong. Hey, I don't believe you, Tommy. Well, Tom put it out since then. But it's good to see that there's a lot of people that are, still around from the old days. And one thing, Gary, before we go any farther, I do want to mention two guys, actually three that aren't with us anymore that were with that '83 team, and that was Charlie Lau, the world's greatest hitting coach, who was one of the truly nice guys in baseball, and Lauren Babe. Now, Sox fans will remember Lauren Babe. He was their top scout way back in the 60s and 70s, and we both knew that they had cancer during that season, and more than likely they were not going to be around for the 1984 season. So we kind of dedicated that year to those guys, and we had more fun with them, and I know their last days were really spent with the kind of people that they wanted to be with, and we certainly wanted to be with them, and that was the main reason I wanted to win the World Series that year. God bless the Baltimore Orioles. They had a great team too, but I really wanted to win it for those guys. And of course, we all know that Kevin Hickey passed away a few years ago. He was a coach with the White Sox too, and of course, Hick was on that team in 1983.
Yep, number 45.
Yeah.
Kittle was just talking about Charlie Lau one day. Told him to get the ball, put it on home plate, rest the ball on home plate, and hit it twice like you're hitting a golf ball. Now, Kittle was one of the youngsters on that team. You were a wily veteran.
Yes.
So I would think like your batting coach has to have a different approach to get a guy's attention who's had a very successful career at the plate. What did Charlie Lau teach you when you were at the dish?
Well, Charlie didn't really. He gave you little hitting tips, but he really didn't try and overhaul you. He's renowned for turning George Brett into the great hitter that he was. But he didn't want everybody couldn't hit like George, because George was just a different kind of individual. But he would make drills up, give you like you put the bat on your front shoulder to get timing, and then bring it back, and just to get a rhythm going. He was more of a rhythm and timing type of a guy, and I'm sure Kitty was more of a power hitter. He'd hit balls on the roof at Comiskey Park, and I was lucky to get get it to the warning track. So we're, you know, for each individual, he coached individually, but he always had a positive attitude. Like if I popped up to the catcher and I hit about it, I jammed the living daylights out of myself, and I knew I was terrible, but Charlie would walk over to you and say, hey, you know, you look hitterish. I do? Wait a minute. I don't feel hitterish. But he always had a positive word to say to you. But he was a wonderful guy. And Lauren Babe was one of the really great coaches, and he was with us that year. And God, we had wonderful people on that team. I mean, just not only great baseball people, but really good guys. And you couldn't overlook Jerry Koosman, who was like the father figure of everybody, and everybody, whatever Kooser said was golden. Him and Luzinski, and you know, we kind of followed those guys around by their example, and you know, the way you were supposed to play the game. And Mark Hill was the Booter boy, was the practical joker on the team, and he was probably held in the next highest of esteem by the guys because of his personality. So there was a lot of things going on over there, a lot of talent. You look at Rudy Law. Rudy stole like 75 bases that year.
Yes, I want to say 70. I want to say 77. You know,
yeah.
I remember numbers. I don't know why. I remember jersey numbers. I remember stats. And sometimes they're easy. Like Billy Williams is easy to remember how many home runs he had in his career. He had 426 homers because he wore number 26. It's easy to remember it. And
right.
Billy Williams still calls Koosman the toughest lefty he ever faced.
He might have been the meanest lefty he ever faced, too. I mean, yeah, I guarantee Billy. Yeah, the Kooser, he was, you know, he could do anything, Harry. You know, he would start, relieve, middle relieve, do anything, and I never saw him with an ice pack on. Never.
Unbelievable.
The only thing he used was in his drink, in his vodka at night.
Well, the man had a plan. So you had to respect that.
He was one of the strongest guys. You know, he was in his 40s, still throwing in the mid-90s. You know, he came from that same breed that Seaver. I never saw Seaver with a sore arm. And Koosman was the same way.
You know, I told my brothers I was doing this show, and they got all excited. My little brother Billy, his favorite player, his all-time favorite White Sox is Richard Dotson, and people remember the top three of that rotation. They remember how devastating they were to batters all season long. Lamar Hoyt, Richard Dotson, and Floyd Banister, but Koosman was in that rotation, and so was Britt Burns. How about I was hoping you'd mention those guys. Isn't that amazing? The five guys, they could pitch today, too, and be the top starting rotation in baseball, that you put those five guys out there. Britt Burns, I remember when his dad was, you know, had fallen ill, and Britt would throw, and then he'd go back to Alabama to be with his dad near the end. And he would throw, you know, he was pitching like the best games of his life. And I swear to God, I wanted to go run out to that mound and put bobby pins on his hat. Every other pitch, his hat would fall off. Well, yeah.
How about the game he pitched the final game of our season in '83 against the Orioles? 11 innings of shutout. Well, he was gutsy too, Harry, and he would have been tremendously better than he was had he not had the bad hips, because that really took a toll on him. It really did. At a young age, his hips just went out on him, but he was a gutsy performer. And I mean, you talk about stuff. I remember facing him when he was 19 years old, and I couldn't believe it. I thought I was facing Koufax.
Well, you know, Koufax, you know, being a fellow Jew, I can tell you the difference is that you know, that Koufax was the way you could tell them apart is Koufax is the one that after every time you'd swing, he would go, "Oi." But we're visiting with Tom Paciorek here on the brand new Games People Play Media Network. This is our White Sox celebration. The '83 White Sox, the team that Doug Rader, the manager of the Texas Rangers, didn't want to give props to. He said, well, they're not as good as you think they are. They keep winning ugly. And you guys kind of use that as a battle cry. What was that like? I mean, you go to Texas for a 4-game series, you take 3 out of 4, and then the next thing you know, you're Secretariat. You're just opening up, and you lead by 8 games, by 10 games, by 12 games. You won the division by 20 games. That little fire that Raiders started there when he said you guys weren't as good as you looked, that you were winning ugly. What was that like, being one of the starters on that team and hearing him say that?
I think it was good that he did say that, Harry, because it did light a little fire. Nobody was going to mess with Rader, by the way. He might be one of the top 5 toughest guys to ever play baseball, but he was just being honest. And, of course, Rader was a White Sox coach, too, later on after that. He was one of the most wonderful guys you've ever met in baseball. So, I think it was more tongue-in-cheek. We would catch a few breaks and win, but, we had a lot of talent on that team. But, boy, when you look at the guys, that lineup, we haven't even talked about Harold Baines yet and Carlton Fisk. And I'm
Hall of Fame.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And, that was some guys. That team, geez, when you look at it, God, I just wish we could have won the championship then for the city of Chicago and the coaches that we talked about earlier. But, man, we were as good as anybody. That lineup back in the pitching we already talked about. My God, who's going to hit those guys?
Right, and here's Baines. You can tell you're good when your team retires your number and you're still playing.
Yes, how good is that? You know what? At one time during that year here, we won 17 straight home games, and we finally lost the game. We got in the clubhouse that night, and we said, "What happened?" It was such an unusual feeling. And the one thing that may have been the downfall of our team is we clinched too early. We weren't playing meaningful games in September. And so, the adrenaline flow, it was a little bit tough. But when you go into a series against the Baltimore Orioles, a 3 out of 5, which is really hard. Best out of 7, generally speaking, the better team's going to win. But 3 out of 5 is tough. And, the Orioles were great, but they were playing, they had a pennant chase that they had to win in their division. We did not. And I think that was to their advantage.
Right. And also, if you had played a best of 7, you got the Cy Young winner who just beat them in their ballpark coming out on Sunday afternoon.
Exactly.
If you could have won that Saturday game. So we were talking with Kitty about Mike Flanagan never walks anybody. And he drills Kittle on the knee. He shatters his knee. And Kittle plays like another inning, and he cannot dress Saturday.
Right. I remember that very well.
He couldn't have played the – so, did that, were you guys ready to brawl? Did that intensify your desire to win? Or were you, really ready to, throw down with the Baltimore Orioles at that point?
No, not really, because you certainly don't want to get eliminated from the game. I wish that we could have started a fight with Ripken and Murray, get them kicked out, and that would have been nice. But that wasn't. I think somebody got drilled on their team too, didn't Dot drill?
I believe.
Eddie Murray, or it was either Murray or Ripken, and.
Yeah, it might have been. I know that he took a survey. And nobody will admit to it, but I know that he went up and down the dugout talking to the guys, going, "Who should I hit?" And Murray and Ripken were the 2 answers that he got the most.
Well, yeah, those would be the 2 guys. It's interesting. Back then when Tony LaRussa, our manager, who did a marvelous job with the team, if you hit one of our guys, we were going to hit your best guy. So I think Flanagan may have hit Kittle earlier, and then that's when Dot said, who do you want to get? So I remember Lamar had to, we got hit, a couple of our guys got hit by the Tigers. And so the natural guy to get hit for them would be Alan Trammell. So, and Lamar, he could hit a gnat in the behind in the outside corner. He could hit anything. He walked one guy every 11 innings. And so he threw 4 balls at Trammell, and Alan looked like a cobra. He got out of the way of everybody. And after the 4th one, Lamar took his glove and threw it on the ground. He was so mad at himself because he couldn't hit him.
I love it. Just a few more minutes here with Tom Paciorek. Of course, we know him from playing for the '83 White Sox, the Win and Ugly team, and also from being in the booth with Hawk. What did Hawk Harrelson teach you about baseball that you didn't know until you sat down next to him?
Well, anytime I had a question about, about the broadcasting end of it was really the most where Hawk helped me, because I think we grew up in that era of old school baseball where it was intense. The way, the semantics of the game, the fundamentals of the game, I think we both agreed on. But I learned a lot from Hawk, the Hawkisms and stuff, and how to turn a phrase and, how to do an interview and things like that, which were very good for my career. And, going back to the '83, we had Don Drysdale was our announcer as well as the Hawk.
Right, and so, Hall of Famer. Just a great pitcher, Don Drysdale.
Oh, my goodness. And, Hawk was great. He was a great mentor for me, and I appreciate everything he does. And it's certainly about time that they put him into the Hall of Fame. And when with his luck, this virus hits. But it was an honor for me to introduce him at his last game at the ballpark. And, and I told the fans, I says, when you come here, you look up there in that broadcast booth, there's a man who was there for 40 plus years and did marvelous things for this city. And remember one thing, he gone, but he'll never, ever be forgotten.
Right.
The Hawk of you.
Tom, you played in the bigs. You had about 82 brothers that played in the bigs. If you ask most people who is their favorite baseball player in the movie Naked Gun, they'll say Reggie Jackson. Who would you say if I asked you who's your favorite baseball player in the movie Naked Gun?
My brother played first base for the Angels in that game. His name was Zorn. So I guess I'll have to say it was my brother Mike.
Gotta love that. Gotta love that there's a Paciorek right in the middle of Naked Gun hanging out with Leslie O.
Oh, my God. Enrico Paul.
Right. He should have turned his mic off before he went in the men's room.
Oh my God!
You look at these guys now that are taking the field. We waited so long for a lot of these guys to come up, and my favorite player is Tim Anderson, but they're loaded with young talent. You got Roy in left, Luis Robert in center, Moncada, who's coming off COVID. Madrigal looks like he was a brilliant selection. And then Abreu's having just this ridiculous year. They did a great job of bringing in Keuchel and in Grandal and Encarnacion. And Giolito's found himself. Where do you think that this team, this current edition, the 2020 Sox, where do you think they end up? Are they going Fall Classic?
Well, I know things haven't been kind to them lately, Harry. I'm looking at falling a little bit, but it's a season of peaks and valleys, and hopefully, it's a team that is the hottest team this last week. I think is going to go a long way in the playoffs. I really do. Remember when the Sox won the World Series? What was it, 2004? They were red at the end of the season, and they just carried it over into the World Series. So I'm hoping that something can happen during these next few games where the Sox can get that spark, and get those guys to hitting again, because I know that a few of them have been in slumps lately, and Abreu can't do it all by himself right now. And Timmy Anderson has really emerged as a superstar. He has become a very, he wasn't as consistent his first couple of years, but now he's a model of consistency, and he's going to be a perennial threat to win the batting title every year. So those two guys, Abreu and Anderson, are the best, but the other guys have got to contribute as well. And one thing about Ricky Renteria, I just love him, and I think he's perfect for that team. You mentioned about the Latin guys on the team and the abundance of them, and so Ricky is perfect. He's bilingual, and he does a great job communicating with this team. And I'm sure he'll get them going. I'm sure he'll have them fired up for these last few games and do well in the playoffs. We got to beat Cleveland though.
Yes, the Cleveland and Minnesota are the two teams I'm most worried about them meeting in the playoffs. So Tom, is there any truth? I got to ask you this before I let you go. And again, you're awesome for giving us time today. Is there any truth to the rumor that you're going to Minnie Minoso it and come back this year to get one more hit this decade.
No.
I heard 2021, Paciorik's on the roster. That's what I'm hearing.
Well, no, my doctors probably won't let me do that.
Dr. Schmocker.
Dr. Schmocker. Hey, how do you know him?
Are you kidding? I know the doctors, they have prescription pads. Of course I know them. Tom, you're awesome. That 83 season was awesome. I know that you feel like there was unfinished business, but one thing you did was you enlightened the fans. And, you know, I'm not into moral victories. I know Britt Burns, who I loved on that team, talked about what a moral victory it was for him to throw that gem on Saturday. But, you know, that team was destined for more than a moral victory. And it's terrible that you guys didn't win it, but it's wonderful that we can celebrate it. And I just, you know, as a player, as an announcer, you're beloved by Sox fans. You take care of yourself, buddy. You make sure nobody in Georgia messes with you. You are the prince.
All right, buddy. Well, you guys take care. My best to all the great, wonderful people. I love them all in Chicago, and I miss them a lot. Take care.
All right. Well, you're spectacular. Thank you, Tom. That's our show. It's a brand new podcast network, and it's called Games People Play. It's the Games People Play Media Network. This show has been designated as still ugly after all these years. Now, if you want to tweet at me, my Twitter handle is HateTweetHarry. Thanks very much to Andy, just for doing a wonderful job for creating this network with Bernie Corbett and for running the show, being the maestro today. We appreciate it very much, Mr. B. And we will be back with you. I can't tell you when, but we'll be back with you soon. So just follow me on Twitter, HateTweetHarry, and you'll know all about what's going on with Games People Play. Thanks so much to our three guests from the 83 Sox. Tom Paciorek, number 44, Ron Kittle, number 42, and Hawk Harrelson, number 40. Boy, if we had another guest, we would have had to keep going to Dave Nelson. It was a pleasure talking White Sox, and let's hope that these next few days bring some more great memories for White Sox fans. I'm looking forward to a Sox-Cubs World Series, and the rest of the country, they can just go to hell. They can watch us. We appreciate you listening. Take care of yourselves. Stay healthy. Be safe. Wear a mask. Wear a catcher's mask. It was cool enough for Carlton Fisk. James McCann does it. You can do it too. All right. Thanks for listening. We'll catch you next time.
Mark, I like the devil to get the top off that champagne bottle in a hurry. Oh, my goodness gracious. There you go. We're just going to look for a few minutes and let these guys enjoy it. Right down to the monitor in front of us. And we're going to wait till the owners and also Tony LaRussa come in. The Bull Greg Luzinski going over to get some.
We hope you've enjoyed spending some time looking back on the 1983 Chicago White Sox. And we wish the 2020 White Sox a happier ending than the winning ugly team had. Once again, thank you to the three wonderful gentlemen that joined us today, Tom Paciorek, Ron Kittle, and the Hawkaroo, Ken Hawk Harrelson. The executive producer was Andy Bernstein, and Games People Play is a brand new media network. You're going to be listening to these podcasts all over the place for a long, long time. He said, hopefully. I'm Harry, and you can tweet at me at HateTweetHarry. I hope that the Cubs and the Sox play in the World Series. And, I just made a bunch of Sox fans upset with me. Guys, the rest of the country, they can all screw each other. Cubs, Sox, World Series. Sox, Cubs in the Fall Classic. What could be better than that? Thanks for watching. We appreciate it. Bye-bye. Na, 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 na. Hey, hey, hey. Bye-bye.
Goodbye. We got the fever, the 59 fever.